From a small island in the Mediterranean to the throne of France and finally to exile on a distant shore, Napoleon's story is a reminder that even the greatest empires can fall. He was born Napoleon Bonaparte on August 15, 1769 on the island of Corsica, which at the time was ruled by the Republic of Pisa. But before he was a military genius, emperor, and conqueror, he was just a young boy who would grow up to be Corsican. He received his early education from his father, Carlo, who was a member of the local nobility, and his mother, Maria, who was from a family of impoverished Italian aristocrats. At the age of 9, he was sent off to military school in mainland France, an event that would shape the rest of his life. Napoleon excelled at military studies and graduated top of his class in 1785. But with no money and few connections, he struggled to get ahead in the army. So he took a job as an artillery officer in the French colonial army stationed in the Caribbean. It was here that he really made his name as a military commander when he led a successful defense of a key port against an attack by the British Royal Navy. Upon his return to France in 1796, he was promoted to general and given command of an army in Italy. There he faced off against the Austrians, the Russians, and the Sardinians, and though outnumbered and outgunned, Napoleon managed to defeat them all. This made him a hero in the eyes of the French people and set him up for greater things. In 1799, there was a coup d'etat in France, and Napoleon seized power, becoming first consul. 2 years later, he crowned himself emperor in a lavish ceremony at Notre Dame Cathedral. Soon after, he began a series of military campaigns that would take him all over Europe. He fought against the Austrians again, and this time they were no match for him. He defeated them at the battles of Marengo and Caransebes, forcing them to recognize the new French Republic. Next, he turned his attention to the Dutch, the Spanish, and the Portuguese. In 1805, he invaded Portugal and the Netherlands, defeating both armies and forcing them to join the French Empire. With most of Western Europe under his control, Napoleon felt ready to take on the rest of the continent. So in 1806, he did something crazy. He invaded Russia. Now, you might be asking yourself, why did he do that? Like, what was he thinking? Well, it's complicated. One reason was that he wanted to put an end to the war with Russia once and for all. He also wanted to expand his empire into the Middle East, and he hoped that by conquering Russia, he could control the trade routes there. Finally, he wanted to show the Russians who was boss in Europe. Napoleon's invasion of Russia was one of the greatest military disasters in history. Despite having the largest and most powerful army ever assembled up until that point, he was forced to retreat from Moscow after losing tens of thousands of men to cold, starvation, and disease. Upon his return to France, he reorganized his army and prepared for a new round of fighting. But the Russians weren't the only ones who had been waiting for him. While he was gone, a coalition of European powers had formed to take him down once and for all. They included the British, the Russians, the Austrians, the Swedes, the Dutch, the Portuguese, and the Spaniards. Together, their armies were much larger than his, and so Napoleon knew that he had to act quickly if he was going to win the war. In 1809, he launched a surprise attack on Austria, forcing them to sign a treaty that ended the war and secured his position as ruler of France. But it was only a matter of time before the other European powers joined the fight. In 1812, Napoleon's worst fears were realized when the Russians, the Prussians, and the Austrians all declared war on him. The following year, they were joined by the British and the Dutch. Once again, Napoleon found himself facing an army that was many times larger than his own. But instead of running away this time, he decided to fight. The result was the Battle of Nations, which took place on October 1813 near Leipzig, Germany. It was one of the largest battles in history, involving more than 600,000 soldiers. Napoleon's forces were eventually defeated, and he was forced to flee to France. He was soon declared an outlaw by the European powers, and a price was put on his head. But the French people still loved him, and many of them came out to greet him when he returned to Paris. He tried to rally them to his cause, but it was too late. The other European powers had already entered France and were marching on Paris. By April 1814, Napoleon had lost his throne and was forced to abdicate. He was then exiled to the island of Elba off the coast of Italy. Napoleon's exile didn't last long. In February 1815, he escaped Elba and returned to France. There, he raised another army and began making plans to reclaim his empire. But before he could do anything, the European powers had declared war on him again and sent their armies to stop him. This time, the battle was short and decisive. On June 1815, Napoleon's forces were defeated at the Battle of Waterloo in present-day Belgium. He was then captured and exiled to the remote island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic Ocean. There he spent his final years writing his memoirs and dictating his thoughts on a wide range of subjects, including military history, politics, and philosophy. He died on May 5, 1821, at the age of 51. His body was then returned to France and buried in a tomb at Les Invalides, where it remains today. Despite his short life, Napoleon had a profound impact on the course of European history. He helped spread the ideals of the French Revolution throughout Europe. He introduced many new ideas about government and society, and he left behind a legacy that continues to inspire people around the world today. But his story is also a warning about the dangers of unchecked ambition. He was once a young man full of promise, but he let his desire for power and glory consume him, and in the end, he lost everything. Napoleon's story is a reminder that even the greatest empires can fall. But that's not the end of his story, because after his death, his legacy lived on. People have been fascinated with Napoleon ever since he died. There have been countless books, movies, and TV shows about him, and he continues to be one of the most popular subjects in world history. But why are we so obsessed with Napoleon? What is it about his story that has captured our imaginations? Perhaps it's because he was such a complex figure. He was a brilliant military strategist, but he was also a ruthless dictator. He was a champion of the Enlightenment ideals, but he was also a man of the people. Napoleon was both a great leader and a tragic figure. He was a man who achieved great things, but ultimately failed to achieve his greatest goal of creating a lasting empire. If you're interested in learning more about Napoleon, I highly recommend reading some of the classic works about him. There are so many great books about Napoleon, but some of my favorites include The Age of Napoleon by J. Christopher Harold, Napoleon, A Life by Andrew Roberts, and Napoleon, A History by Paul Kengor. These books offer different perspectives on Napoleon's life and legacy, and they'll help you better understand this complex and fascinating man. Thank you for watching.